Hey guys, I'm Stefan, and welcome to my game room. I don't normally do videos like this, where I'm just standing talking to the camera. Most of my videos involve me just kind of showing off my game room. I really want to start doing more YouTube content, so for my first time out, I thought I'd take it a little slow and do something that wasn't necessarily something that I had to get out right away. Today we're talking about Outback Joey, a rare game for the Sega Genesis. Recently I was able to obtain 2 copies, but upon opening them, the boards are drastically different. So after some research, I think I've come to the conclusion that both of these are real, and so I just wanted to get this information out there, because I think there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of conjecture. So I just kind of wanted to unbiasedly, or as unbiased as I can, being the owner of these cartridges, put out the information that I found and sort of context that with my years working in the game industry, and hopefully kind of quell the storm that has been surrounding these 2 cartridges for the last week or so. Again, I just kind of want to get this information out there. This is my first YouTube video, a real YouTube video that isn't just, flybys of my game room. So I hope you like the content. If you do, hit that like and subscribe, and I'll know to make more. Today's going to be a super niche video that I'm not sure everyone's going to really care about, but I thought it was really important to get this information out, and then you can kind of just decide for yourself and talk about it in the comments if you want. I'm happy to answer questions. So yeah, let's get these 2 cartridges open, and I'll kind of walk you through the differences in the boards, and we'll see what we'll see. So before we get into tearing these carts apart, I think it's important to say that everything you hear on this topic with this cart, including what comes from me or anyone else who has a strong opinion, there's going to be a level of conjecture. These carts were made in 1993. Many of you weren't even alive then, so finding actual fact on some of this stuff is pretty challenging. So all you can do is compare these cartridges to what's already out there and make your best, educated guess. So, as new evidence comes out, if there's new evidence that comes out, maybe things will change. But all I'm doing right now is giving my opinion using the facts that I have available to me, and my experience as a game developer for 16 years. That's all I can do. So I'm trying my best, and let's get into these carts. Okay, so I've made sure to keep the correct board with the correct label, because both the board and the label for one of these carts are in question for different reasons. Let me back up and tell you the story of where both these carts came from. This cart came out of a complete in-box copy of the heartbeat personal monitor, which is the custom Genesis exercise system that you are required to have in order to make these games play. For those of you who don't know what Outback Joey is, taking a step further back, this is a game not unlike the Exertainment series for the Super Nintendo, where you hook the system up to your body, and it monitors your heart rate and gameplay of the game, in which you control this little kangaroo, changes based on your heart rate. You can also there's also controllers that you can control it with. I believe the game speeds up or slows down based on your heart rate. So the pack-in game for that system, and there were going to be other games that they have discovered prototypes for, but the pack-in was Outback Joey. So this one came out of a store in Beaverton, Oregon, that I had to run across on Instagram. This other one came from an eBay auction that I purchased about a week ago. I spoke to the gentleman who had it before him, and that person claims to have had this cart in his possession since 2003, which would be well before anyone was really making reproduction carts to any significant extent. So the thing that makes this board most suspicious to people is that it is an EPROM board. So those two EPROMs are flashable chips. So that's why there's the sticker over them, because you would normally have a window that would show the flashable chip. Typically, you would see this a lot on reproduction cartridges because that's how they're made. You flash it onto the chip. That's also how games are made in early development. If you look at some of the unreleased prototypes that we've found for the Heartbeat system, they're using this exact same board. If you look at least a half a dozen of cartridges that I've found photos of, including games in private collections, Johnny Iucci's cart, the video game history museum, their cart, they look identical to this cart down to the printing on the label. So now let's look at this label. So this label, there's basically one thing about this label that throws a red flag to every Genesis collector ever. If you ever see a production cart that has these sharp edges like this does on its label, chances are it is fake. However, it's important to realize that Outback Joey was made in an edition of about 1,000, which is well under the minimum print run for Sega Genesis. So we're really not exactly sure what the printing process was for this particular game. So it's foolish to out of hand reject this because of the label corners. And again, if you look at many other different copies of this cart, then you see these sharp corners. And also, if you look at the gloss on this label, you can tell that it's a very high quality of print. It just wasn't trimmed correctly for the... There we go. It wasn't trimmed correctly for the cartridge. And if you look at the other label, the less suspicious quote-unquote label, it has that same level of gloss to it. So again, let's take a look at this other cart now, the quote-unquote less suspicious cart. So there are also examples of this cartridge with the rounded label. Going back to as early as 2005 in my research, and even this one has some really weird stuff on it. Like, typically there would be a maker's mark on this board. It would say something about who made this board, but if you look at it, there is absolutely nothing. But at the same time, there is no signs that this is a flashable EPROM. There's no signs that this would have been a reproduction cartridge. To dismiss it out of hand because it doesn't have maker's marks is silly. And you can also see on the chip there is the printing that does call out Sega by name. Now, you know, again, that could be faked, but you're talking about a fake that would be, you know, 20 plus years old. It just doesn't add up. And if you were going to make a replica this good, why wouldn't you use, like, if you cared, if you were trying to make it look authentic, why would you use a board that had no maker's mark? You could just unsolder. This is an identical board to many Genesis games. You could just unsolder the chip from a regular Genesis game and put this chip on it, and it would look more authentic. It just doesn't make sense that you wouldn't go all the way if you were already this good, right? Aside from that, both carts function identically. You know, they both, with Outback Joey, you can only play these if you have the correct Heartbeat personal monitor controllers plugged into the Genesis, and otherwise it just boots to the licensing screen. They both behave that way. To my knowledge, they both, we haven't dumped these, but to my knowledge, they both have identical ROMs. That's something that I would be interested in doing. I would love to dump these ROMs and see if there's any differences. But again, to my eye and my expertise and things that I know went on early in the cartridge industry, I mean, here's what I think happened. These boards were manufactured first as part of the development process. There were only 1,000 of these made, so it makes perfect sense. You know, it was been under minimum print run, so who knows, like, obviously if these were Sega manufactured, they would have some sort of maker's mark on the PCB too. And neither of them have that. So what I believe happened is that this board was used in the development process. They were trying to save money and make it easier on themselves, so they used whatever boards that they had of this style, put them into manufacturing, because every board that I've seen this example of has come from a Heartbeat personal trainer. These are packed in with the original hardware, which is arguably much more difficult to find than the actual game. So just the idea that sometime in the 90s someone created a reproduction to go with the original hardware is just, the odds just get more and more astronomical as you think about it more. I think they used these boards to save money in the beginning, and when they ran out, they switched over to a more traditional production method. In the context, it makes complete sense. There's just no reason why I would be led to believe that either of these boards are illegitimate. They look great, they play great, and there's no sign, you know, yes, this is using EPROMs, but you know, there are forum posts dating back to 2005 to 2003 of people mentioning, you know, before anyone would have any reason to make a reproduction of this cart, there's people who've opened them and mentioned on boards, and I'll put a screenshot here, that they're like, hey, we opened this board and it's using EPROMs, and that's crazy. There's just no way someone was making fakes of this board in 2003. It's just not a thing. I'm sorry, but the more I think about it, the more laughable it is. So I think that about does it. I hope this was informative, and I hope that those who have either one of these or both realize that I'm not trying to put one over on you. I'm not trying to get away with anything here. I just want to put the information out there so you can make your own decision. But as far as I can tell, there is no reason for people who have either of these boards to be concerned that they're illegitimate. So I really hope you got something out of this. Again, if you have either one of these games, you should be happy that they're in your collection and not spending so much time freaking out that either one of them is fake. And also, let's just be open to new ideas. You know, when someone challenges something in your collection, you should have the confidence to stand up to that challenge and not shriek away and want to find the truth. Like, you know, just be better. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. You were either really entertained or super bored out of your mind, so in either case, let me know what you think. And, you know, if there's something that you see in these boards that makes you concerned that I didn't cover, that you would like to talk about, I am happy to talk about it. So yeah, let me know, and I'm happy to respond to whatever questions you have. Thanks.